As most of you can tell, this is a Mac Pro. A lot of people think this is a really nice case. If you look at the dimensions, I think it's a little bit big and gaudy. Not so much for the dual quad systems, but for a single quad core system, it's much bigger than it needs to be. I think the inside of the case looks nice, but it's not using the case as efficiently as it should be, or as efficiently as it could be. And I'll explain why. Here's my new case that I got. It's a Micro ATX case. But as you can tell by looking at it, there's 3 expansion bays on the front of it, of the larger expansion bays, and then another smaller expansion bay that you could use for like a floppy disk or even a media card reader. If you look at the case inside, you can see there's room in there for 6 internal hard drives if you wanted. That actually means that this small Micro ATX case, which is about half the size of the Mac Pro, has much more functionality to it than the Mac Pro, and it also has more storage space as well. I think it's important to utilize the space that you have within your computer. The ATX case you see before you is a little bit unique. Most mini ATX towers and mid ATX towers, they usually just allow you to put devices right at the front of the case, which this one does as well. But if you look at where the hard drives are mounted, they actually make a little bit better use of the case than most other cases I've seen so far. The power supply actually mounts on the bottom towards the back, and then they have the hard drives mounted right after those, so they're actually getting a little bit more room in there for hard drives than most other cases would. Most other cases would mount the hard drives, 4 hard drives, right at the front of the case. Like this one does have 4 hard drives, but it's got 4 hard drives side by side, so they're actually getting an 8. And if you look at, they could have actually put in more of the bigger expansion bays in the computer as well, so they're not making as much use of this case as they actually could. But with 7 expansion bays on the front, that's quite a lot. Most people won't need more than that. Plus you've got room for 8 hard drives internally. So it's a unique looking case, there's no doubt about it. They've made good use of the space. The case you see right now is actually a full ATX style case. It'll take an ATX motherboard. It would also take a Micro ATX motherboard obviously as well. But it does have the 7 expansion slots. Most ATX cases would have the power supply located right above the motherboard. If you look at this case, the power supply is actually mounted right underneath the expansion bays at the front of the computer. It makes it possible to have a case that would fit a full ATX motherboard the size of one of the Micro mini tower cases. So this, I gotta give this company a thumbs up for being creative with this type of computer case architecture, I guess you would call it. What we have here is a mid-tower ATX case. The full tower ATX case would probably be about 2.5, maybe 3 inches taller. You'd maybe get 1 or 2 extra expansion bays on the bigger ones. Now you do see sometimes full ATX cases that'll only have 4 expansion bays, 4 of the bigger ones, or maybe even only 5. If that's the case, they'll have more hard drive space in it than the ones that, you know, obviously have the 6 bigger expansion bays. That's mainly how the cases work. You've got from a full tower to like a mini tower. It just goes by how many more expansion bays you're going to get, either internally or externally. This little case here, this little Micro ATX case, it does obviously only have the 4 expansion slots as far as putting in, you know, audio cards or RAID controller cards or video cards as well. I mean, you can tell the slots are removed on this. I actually just put this case, or I just put this motherboard in this case like 2 days ago. Like I said, this case right here is going to work out the best for me. There's no need for me to have a case as big as this. This is great if I had an ATX case, or if I had an ATX motherboard. There's really nothing wrong with this particular case. It's just, why use all this extra space if this is going to work out more efficient for me? Now, as far as looks are concerned, I really like the look of this case. Some people may think it looks crappy, but out of these 2 cases, I think they both look really nice. Like I said, I just don't need anything this big. If this case here was hypothetically, say, 2 inches shorter, maybe a 1/2 inch narrower, and just maybe a simple 1.5 inch shorter in length, so it actually was almost the size of this Micro ATX case. It's possible I might prefer this case better. I mean, I do like the way that, the bays, expansion bays get hidden. I like the fact that it's just really sleek. There's just nothing to it really, except for on the front you got the ports there. For me, there's really no need for me to get, an ATX motherboard. I can't see myself buying one anytime in the future, but I could be wrong. Maybe I would need an ATX, motherboard in the not so distant future. And I actually used to get full tower cases from, say, like 1999 to like 2003. I was always getting full tower cases. Then by around 2004, I realized I just really didn't need them, and I started getting mid-tower cases. And now that I can actually make use of a mini tower, well, of course I'm going to do it. I mean, there's still enough, room in there for hard drives. I've got my expansion base, so, this is definitely the way to go for me. I'm saving myself a lot of space. Like, this may appear big and bulky, and it kind of is, but it actually would take up a little bit less space than a Mac Pro would, because the Mac Pro actually almost has the same dimensions as this case, but you got to figure it's got that extra little handle on the top and on the bottom, taking up about 1.25 inches on top and 1.25 inches space on the bottom. So the Mac Pro would actually be sitting up, well, probably about this much taller than this case is. So I mean, you can imagine the difference between this case here takes up about half the space of the Mac Pro, but it's actually much more efficient inside. As you can see, I've got room for 3 expansion bays of the bigger ones, one of the smaller expansion bays, but I've also got room for more hard drives than the Mac Pro has. So this is just an ass-kicking case, the more I think about it, and I really do like the way it looks. I'm going to be able to put my new Micro ATX case, on the shelf where this is, but I'll be able to put some of these devices on the same shelf and really free this up to actually put a DV deck in there. If I wanted, I could actually even put like a small, 10-channel Mackie mixing board on there, audio board on this top shelf here. You'll see once I start to make the video with my newer Micro ATX case. What I plan on doing is actually taking this gear, putting it up on top of here, and I'll probably get a little 8-10 channel Mackie mixer, or maybe not a Mackie mixer, but some mixer that has USB or FireWire input rather than doing everything analog wise and just plug it in the sound card. This mixing board is obviously purely analog, but that's kind of my goal. I'll get a little USB or FireWire audio mixer. When this mid tower was sitting in here, as you know, this was raised up about 3 inches. I really wouldn't have had the space, to actually reach my hand in there with an audio board and make adjustments as I need them. But by dropping this down, by having this, little Micro ATX case, this shelf will be perfect for, my audio board. And I'll actually probably take this and pop it up on here. This external audio and video gear can actually just sit right on this mini ATX tower case if I wanted to. So I don't actually have to have it set up on here, but there will be enough space for my workstation. Just pop that on top of there and put my audio board right here. If people come in with a digital camera and want to lay it on top of my desk, they can. As you can see, I like to have my keyboard on here. I don't really need it on there, obviously, if I'm just doing video editing and whatnot. But when I hear about the Mac users talking about how they can put their OS drive on an external FireWire drive or USB drive, and they can just get an external RAID enclosure and whatnot, and an external card reader. That's true, but you've only got so much space at your workstation. I mean, why clutter it up?
I have included this last video clip to show that even if you didn't have the shelves to place the computers on, if you just had something almost like a table, you could put 2 computers side by side one another and actually hook one up to the one monitor, the other up to the other monitor. I mean, in the end, the workstation or work area is yours to do what you want, and I'm just trying to show people to try and use the work area to the best of your ability as far as space is concerned. And what I've got here is just devices that can be put into the expansion bays on most ATX cases. The very last thing that you're seeing there is the Canopus DV Storm, and I actually had one of these video capture cards. It was nice to have that breakout box right in the front of the computer. It did take up one of the bigger expansion bays, but nice unit altogether.